Giles, welcome back to F.A.C.E. Everyone, Giles is the Chief Market Analyst at HYCM. Welcome back, buddy.
Hey Dale, how's it going?
Doing pretty good, buddy. Gosh, you look sharp this morning, and you're happy. So you have some pairs that you want to share with us today that you were talking about on Twitter, or
Yeah, well,
has the menu changed with today's action?
well, no, I mean, obviously we've had the UK budget, and it really has been not surprising. I think from a political perspective, it's been quite well handled. But from a financial perspective, that means little reaction. So I think it's a political success. But in terms of the overall moves for the pound, I think everything's pretty much as expected, and the pound should continue to be dollar driven, which is something that the UK really struggled to understand, is how much the dollar drives what's happening with the pound, particularly in the UK financial media. I'm often speaking to financial journalists who are worrying about the fall in the pound, and I say, well, look, it's all to do with the strength in the dollar, which has been weakening the yen, the euro, the Aussie, the New Zealand dollar, and the euro was roughly comparably the same weakness as the pound. Euro's about 9% down against the dollar, pound's about 11% on a year-on-year basis.
Okay,
So
let me ask you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about this dollar bound. So, is it your view, this is a big question, was that the high, an important high for some time to come at 1460? Or is this just a bounce to correct the 1,000 pip decline approximately? And this is a dip to buy in things like cable and
Yeah, should I show you what I'm looking at?
Yeah,
Should I share my screen? And
yeah, it's at the bottom, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. Just give me a second. Let's have a look. I got it. There we go. There we go. Because I was enjoying listening to the discussion before I came on, and the thing that was really striking out to me is the path of a lot of these major pairs is going to really depend on the incoming data. And I think there's some really fantastic opportunities that are really worth looking at. And I'm just going to run through them.
We just got a very weak number in the Philly Fed.
Yeah.
Has that helped a recovery in euro? I don't have my screen up now, but did the dollar give some back on a weak number?
It's very marginal moves. We've got a little bit of a dollar dip, but not major. I mean, just while I'm waiting for my calendar to load up, the big one that I'm looking for is on December the 1st with the core PCE print. We know that's the Fed's preferred method of inflation. So if we see that coming in below markets expectations, then we're going to see another flush lower in the dollar. We should see S&P 500 pushing higher, and we should see gold pushing higher as well. So what I'm looking for is that incoming inflation data, which is just so crucial, and that flows out in the PPI data, and that's going to tell us whether the pound has bottomed. I mean, looking at the price action, there's so much bad news priced in for the pound now. We've got a full year recession. The Office for Bureau Responsibility said the UK should be in recession from this quarter all the way through to the quarter next year. Unemployment is expected to rise to 4.9%. The general outlook for the UK is one of sort of depression in terms of the political angle. We haven't managed to sort out Brexit. We don't have a clear direction. The Conservatives have lost voters' confidence, but they've got 18 months until there's a general election. So we have the prospect of another vacuum period. So in terms of more bad news, we already are on a semi-war footing with Russia. It's very hard to see how it can get worse for the UK. So from the pound's perspective, I think that's the bottom. But it will depend what happens with the dollar, and what happens with the dollar will depend what happens with inflation from the US.
Okay.
So if I was a betting man, my base case is I'm expecting the pound to gain against the dollar from here on in.
From here.
Yeah.
So it'd be unreasonable after a 1,700 pip move to even be looking for a 38.2 retracement of that?
No, when I say that my broad view is to the upside, I wouldn't be trading that. I would have that as my bias, but I would not be buying the pound at these current levels.
Okay.
I would only be, the way I'm trading it is intraday, Dale. So I'm looking for a short-term deviation, and then I'm taking maybe 50, 100-point moves, closing my trades, and looking for the next opportunity. So
Yeah.
I'm not in a scenario where I'm so convinced of what's going to happen. There's so many uncertainties. Will inflation be stickier? Who knows? Will the Russian-Ukraine crisis get worse? Who really knows? No one really has a firm idea on what these outcomes will be, and people have been wrong about them in the recent past, and they're very intelligent people that have been wrong about them. So I find the safest option, as it were, is to take those short-term deviations when it's obvious what's going to happen. That's really what I've been.
What time frame do you trade off of while you're scalping in day trading?
Like 15-minute chart.
Oh, that's Ryan's favorite.
Yeah, it's just
I like them too. The 15-minute chart. Okay.
Nice and easy. So I shorted the euro-US dollar this morning. I went long the dollar index last night, and I've just closed both positions out. That's it. I've taken what I wanted, and now wait for the next narrative that either I've got a sense of, I'm either in the flow of the market, or there's a key deviation. And we just saw a lot of dollar weakness recently, so it just felt natural to have a bit of a retracement overnight. And that's what we've seen.
Okay, is it your view on the longer term analysis? It must be, because of the way you're talking about cable, that the dollar peak that we had a month ago could be long standing. And
yes.
Long standing, not a short term top, at least intermediate term.
But I've been wrong 6 or 7 months on the dollar top. Okay. So I don't trust myself on calling the top in the dollar, because I was expecting the dollar to peak much earlier than it has, because I was expecting inflation to peak much earlier than it has.
Okay. Well, be a broken clock with me and say that.
yeah, at least you're right. But I don't trouble myself over that, because I'm not trying. It's like I can't see the future. So when my trading perspective, I was speaking to a guy at our church.
Oh, Giles, they'll let you wear a tinfoil hat where you live.
Yeah, he said,
and get under your pyramid and make Nostra Coughlan calls. So, okay. Any view on? I know you were going to talk about a yen cross.
Yes.
We had that huge vacuum decline in the yen once it took out 145. Do you think that high, although it was accompanied by intervention with everyone said, oh, it won't work, I think it worked. And do you think that that's a long-standing high, and now the yen has much further to fall with yields?
I think the question of the yen intervention working is, once again, everything comes back to the dollar, doesn't it? It was really a dollar story that helped the Bank of Japan, because they'd intervened a couple.
No, it was a Wall Street Journal story.
Yeah. So, it was.
So it really was a story.
Yeah. And if you look at the Bank of Japan's communication, they knew that. They didn't tell you a level. They were very cagey about when they were going to be intervening. They know recent history. Look at the Swiss National Bank. They failed to peg the euro Swiss franc. The RBNZ failed. The People's Bank of China mooted pinning the 7 handle and decided against it. So every central bank that's ever tried to peg a currency have not succeeded in and of their own right. So yes, it was the drop in 10-year yields, which was always going to help the Bank of Japan. And I think they were just carefully trying to cleverly do their timing alongside market dynamics. So,
well, they were early first at about 138.
Yes,
they did go to 52.
But the way I looked at that is they wanted to.
That was their rookie. They had their rookie trader on the desk. Someone like us, Giles, we're always early. So, but they backed it up. And that was really the key, right?
Yes. So as long as inflation drops, I think that is the top, and that should be the end of the yen. weakness,
Okay.
and it should strengthen.
So the next inflection point I'm getting is wait for December 1st for the PCI.
Yeah, the PCE, that's the Fed's preferred method of inflation. So there'll be a really good indication of what the Fed's going to be looking at in terms of their December the
PCE.
14th meeting.
Okay.
So that's what I'm focusing on, these short-term, highly probable trading opportunities, and just trying to take little bites out of the market.
Well, the Fed, I don't think is that happy about the big rally that we had in equities, and there has been some Fed speak talking about a terminal rate above 5, and we're not even at 5 yet.
Yeah, but I thought Jerome Powell did an amazing job at the last rate statement. I thought it was genius, because the statement itself said that we're going to be thinking about monetary policy lag. So that was dovish, because he was essentially saying we will be conscious that when we hike rates today, it's not going to have an impact till 6-12 months down the line. So that's more dovish. But then in the press release, he said we're going to be continuing to hike interest rates to a greater level than we previously expected. So he's kind of kept both roads open to him via that statement. And in the UK, we'd say he's running with the hares and the hounds. He's playing both sides. And for me, I thought, wow, that's very good central bank communication, because he's allowing both options for himself as a central bank, playing a little bit with the market, which I think you have to with so much speculation around. You have to shake out some of those loose hands and try to get people who are settled in order to get some stability, which is what his goal is a stable currency market. So it's, you know, beneficial for US investors, US businesses. So I thought his communication was very clever.
Very good politician.
Yes.
He's a lawyer.
Yes, and he's conscious of how the market's going to react. So it was, you know, I know a lot of these central bank speakers get a lot of flack, but there's a real fine art to communicating to the market, because you're communicating to people that are never going to be happy with what you say. You're going to disappoint someone terribly. So people vent off their frustration, particularly in the financial community, because central bankers say things they don't want to hear.
Okay, I have a question from an attendee, from a viewer. Patrick wants to know, what do you think about a new 35% windfall tax on UK energy companies? How would that affect the pound?
It's not going to affect very much, because number one, domestic UK energy companies don't do much business within the UK itself. So it's a crowd pleaser. So that tax hike of 35% looks like the UK government's getting tough on big energy companies, but actually it's a very small amount of revenue that will be generated. And it's only been raised from 25% up to 35%. So it's just a 10% increase. Okay. And really what the UK government is saying, yes, we're recognizing the windfall tax, but it's going to have limited impact. It's not going to be a big revenue generator. And the last thing the UK government wants to do is to put off big business if they think they're going to be hit with windfall taxes should, you know, market conditions suddenly favor their business. The last thing the UK government will want to do is to put them off. So
yeah, they want them to continue to expand production.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think about it, the UK policy autumn budget's been quite clever, because on one hand, the fiscal spending is going to carry on. So public services spending is going to increase by 1% a year for the next 5 years. But at the same time, the debt to GDP ratio is set to fall by 2026 and 2027. So it hasn't withdrawn spending. It's not pulling the rug too quickly, but it's just saying our trajectory is that we're going to be spending less as we move into the future, and we're going to get our debt to GDP ratio down, even though in real terms we're giving extra money to schools, extra money to the NHS. Both of them are big winners out of the budget. So again, it's a clever balance that the UK's had to do, and I think they've hit it just right.
Okay, I'm sure you're getting questions from people that follow you. I'm not sure if people can trade Bitcoin at HYCM. Can they?
Yes, they
cover
can, and
crypto?
Ethereum, quite a few different cryptocurrencies at HYCM.
Okay, so I'm interested in your impression of the fraud and whether or not just because there were fraudulent brokers, quote unquote brokers,
Yeah,
commingling funds, and we have this big disaster,
yeah,
does that really affect the credibility of the instrument itself?
yeah,
I think that I'm starting to see some divergences develop down here. I'm
yeah.
watching it. I mean, don't you
Yeah,
buy when there's blood on the streets?
yeah. You do buy when there's blood on the streets. It just
There's lots of
depends.
blood.
It just depends where where the streets are and how much blood there is, right?
Yeah, it's hemorrhaging. We're hemorrhaging here
The
with bad
yeah,
news.
the only thing that makes me think that that's limited in its falls is because the amount of large institutions that hold Bitcoin. So given the fact that there's a lot of big players who have these whales who have huge amounts of Bitcoin, they're less likely to just suddenly, change their outlook on Bitcoin all of a sudden. So I think if I was trading Bitcoin, which I'm not, Dale, I would be looking at major technical levels like the 100, 200 moving average, 5-10 year trend lines, looking to lean against those levels and taking out small chunks. But a small chunk with Bitcoin's got to be $2,000 or $3,000 stop loss anyway. So as soon as you add a bit of leverage to that, you can quite quickly be in hot water. So a lot of retail traders have to be very careful when they're trading Bitcoin to remember that volatility. But it reminded me of a Charles Dickens novel called Little Dorrit. And in that novel, there was an investor who was hailed as the man of the moment, the man of the season, who was going to be the answer to everyone's financial woes. And he attracted to him people who were desperate, people who were greedy, businesses that were struggling, thought if we put all our reserves into this investment manager guy, this will be the salvation of our family. Of course, he was embezzling funds, it all collapsed, and everyone lost their money because they committed the sin that Charles Dickens said it was kind of, I can't remember what the name was, it was something like investors' mistake or speculators' guilt. That's it, speculators' guilt. And that's what Bitcoin FTX sums up to me. Because what was being sold, it was a dream. It was a dream that we can forget all these old fuddy-duddies and their banks and all the money they were taking. We can generate wealth to change the world. And if you just give me your money, we're going to change the world by generating wealth. Intoxicating message. And I don't know if the gentleman involved just got confused or too into what he was doing, didn't understand the risks properly himself. But it just seems, once again, speculators' guilt. It will happen over and over again. That there's something inside of us, Dale, that wants to find a quick solution, a hero, someone who can save us from whatever particular difficulty is right in front of us. And it will always succeed. And it's a reminder why regulation is actually a good thing. It's a good thing. Like our broker, HYCM, it's a regulated broker, which means if our broker goes bankrupt, the government will underpin a certain amount of your deposit. Whereas FTX wasn't FCA regulated here in the UK. No. So that means all the money you had with them, you have probably lost.
Right. I used to say trade with the clearing member firm, like a member of the CME, CBOT, any major exchange, because then you're guaranteed by the exchange. The other clearing members, like when Stotler went down, had to go and make the customers whole.
So regulation can be a very good thing. And I think that's one of the things that perhaps, sometimes it's very hard to fight some of these powerful arguments, isn't it? There's a young guy, it's all hip, it's all cool. And actually,
home run ball hitters, the
home run ball hitters, and actually, sometimes you just need some home truths, and that's not me against anyone or anything, but it is an observation that whatever was going on at FTX got out of hand, and I think with regulation it wouldn't have been allowed to.
He was Nick Leeson on steroids.
Yeah, I mean,
and he took down a bank.
Yeah,
fighting a position,
that's it.
misappropriating funds, same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. And that is a very human mistake to make, because you get in a bit of too much bother, and then you'll pull every stop out to try, it's that one trade that will make up everything. It's that one hit wonder. We look for that. It's in our human psychology.
I've tried it.
I think everyone has, Dale.
I mean, who hasn't tried it?
Who hasn't tried that
Early.
one hit wonder? You know what I mean? If I just, this one shot, if I make this one shot, but of course it's never the one shot. Even if you make the one shot, you'll be back to making other one shots, right? So
Yeah, not a good habit to get into.
so
Better off bunting the ball and running out and getting a single. So sometimes you have to get hit in the head with a ball peen hammer a few times to know it hurts, Giles.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. So I think it's just a good reminder. I mean, and seasoned market veterans, they're just like, well, we've seen it all before and we will see it again. And it's impossible to communicate that really to someone who's just new. So you can see there's a constant generation of new people entering, financial responsibility. They're 18, 25, and they don't understand the psychology of market dynamics, and they don't understand the psychology of themselves, let alone other people. And it's hard. It's a hard skill to teach. How do you teach buy the rumor, sell the fact? How do you teach that you sell when everyone else is buying and you buy when everyone else is selling? It's so counter.
By example.
Yeah, by example. It's like with the China, everything was going so negative on China. I just recently, I was buying China 50 because I thought there's no other bad news to come. It was just negative after negative after negative about 3-4 weeks ago, and I put quite a few articles out there on it. I just said, look, this is overdone. I said, will COVID zero policy be in place 12 months from now? No, it won't. They're not going to hold on to that forever and ever. And the way the market was reacting was as though COVID zero was a permanent policy. And
maybe they end it in the spring.
Yeah,
and the markets will see through it. We have to get through our own COVID winter coming up here in the West. So we'll see.
But the difference, what I noticed, they didn't vaccinate the elderly in the same way that the West did. So the problem they've got is that a lot of their elderly population haven't been vaccinated. So they can't just freely open it up because it will mean a swathe of elderly people will die. Mm-hmm. And their hospital infrastructure is not like ours in the West. It's not so well organized. So they're much more vulnerable to an outbreak. That's why the National Health Commission said they were going to prioritize the vaccination of the elderly. So as soon as I saw that one headline, I knew that was tantamount to a pivot. Because what they're saying is we're coming out. But they can't just say we're coming out of COVID zero. The way the state works, the way the government is, you just had that People's Bank, the People's Communist Party meeting. Mm. The way the politics work, you don't just come out and say we're changing tomorrow, guys. It has to be gradual.
Okay. Yeah, I had a gentleman on who lives in China.
Yeah.
Jerry's take on China, very interesting. So
he
lives there, and he gave us his views on some things that here in the West may not be correct narratives. So Giles, where's the best place for people to follow you? And I know you're looking to buy a break in gold coming up here sometime, maybe after December 1st. But as far as being a chief market analyst, you're golden. Okay, the way you treat
thank
people,
you very much, Dale. It's lovely.
really care about people getting hurt. I hear it in your voice, and it's important to care, and people will feel it and be more open to what you're trying to teach them. And so they're lucky to have you.
No, that's very kind you said, but I've always seen if you look after people's money, you look after people. Because money is a great tool. It's what education, your health, you provide for your family. So for me, there's a very close connection between caring for people's money is very close to caring for people. And unnecessary losses can be limited by limiting certain market behavior.
Giles Coughlan, trying to help people avoid the landmines that
Yeah.
I know both he and I have stepped on. That's a very noble mission. Thank you so much. Great talking to you, Giles. Have a great winter holiday season. We all root for you. You're one of our favorites here at F.A.C.E.
Oh, thank you very much, Dale. It's great to be with you. And my blog is bloghycmlab.com. It's HYCM's blog. Just so compliance don't get, just so compliant I keep them off my back.
The chief, Giles. Everybody.
Thanks,
all
Dale.
right.
Bye,
all
Dale.
right. See you guys. All right, that's a wrap. Everyone loved Giles. Thank you, Patrick, Paul, AAA Auto Club. Oh, okay, AAA. So thank you, everyone. Remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. Having people like Giles in the industry is one, in my opinion. All right, Gorkum, you're welcome. You could join the team in 15 minutes on the Morning Edge. Good hunting today, Jennifer. See you all tomorrow to wrap it up, TGIF. Adios.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with ForexAnalytix. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.